All right, if you're waiting, Leviticus is where we are at. Leviticus 26. All right, if you were here last week, what did Deb talk about? Do I remember? Big picture theme.
Rhythm of life.
All right, rhythm of life. Okay, so she talks about rhythm, and her definition of rhythm was a regulated and repeated sequence of sounds and silence. Okay, remember that? A regulated and repeated sequence of sounds and silence. So I was thinking about that when she was talking about it, and I was thinking about my life. I was thinking, okay, my rhythm seems like it doesn't have a lot of silence in it. And there are a lot of notes maybe that are kind of sharp or kind of flat. And Keith is taking piano lessons, and so I have been listening to him practice. And as he practices, you know, if you've ever played any instrument, it takes a lot of practice, right? And it takes a lot of time to get the notes right or to get the chords right. You know, depending on what you're learning, you have incorrect tempos, you have wrong notes, and it just takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time to get maybe the rhythm right. And it's the same thing with life, right? I think sometimes we think that we are in a good rhythm, and sometimes we just know, I am so off. And so we have to figure out how to get back on that rhythm. And maybe the rhythm is a little bit different than it was before, or maybe it's a little bit the same and we just got off beat. So I'll start with the question that she ended with, which is, how is your rhythm? I've thought about that a lot the last week. And Leviticus has a lot to talk about that as well. So we're really going to dig in and read a lot of Leviticus 26 today. So I hope you're excited about that, because a lot of people are going to have the opportunity to read. But a lot of Leviticus, if you've especially ever been here for a long period of time, we have taught through Leviticus, and it's a lot of laws, right? A lot of it is for the Levites. A lot of it is for us. Here introduces the kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And so basically, Israel is learning how to live. They're in this season of learning. And Leviticus 26, in my opinion, is kind of like reading a horror story. So it starts out maybe pretty good, and then by the end, you're terrified, right? So this is the direction that we're heading. So are you ready? I call Leviticus 1 and 2 the warm-up. It's all nice and sweet. So let's get started. Aaron, would you read Leviticus 26, 1 and 2?
You shall not make idols for yourselves or erect an image or pillar, and you shall not set up a figured stone in your land to bow down to it. For I am the Lord your God. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord.
For us, I feel like this is the warm-up, because we've heard this. We've heard this a lot. So we're just getting ready to move in. Not too bad yet. All right, Leviticus 26, 3 through 5. Alex, can you read that? Yep.
Leviticus 26, 3 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
If you walk in my statutes and observe my commandments and do them, then I will give you your rains in their season, and the land shall yield its increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. Your threshing shall last to the time of the grape harvest. The grape harvest shall last to the time for sowing, and you shall eat your bread to the full and dwell in your land securely.
Okay. Not too bad. You got to do this, and then you get this really good thing. So it's so nice and pleasant. Verses 6 through 8, Roman.
Should we up there?
It's okay.
I will give peace in
the land, and you shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid. And I will remove harmful beasts from the land, and the sword shall not go through your land. You shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall chase 10,000. And your enemies shall fall before you by the sword.
All right, so this is great. This is great. All these good things are happening. You do this little part, and all these good things. You have lots to eat. You have your enemies falling before you. You can just chase them, and then they'll disappear. So life is good. All right, 11 to 13. Kristen.
I will make my dwelling among you, and my soul shall not abhor you. And I will walk among you, and will be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that you should not be their slaves. And I have broken the bars of your yoke, and made you walk erect.
This is where it gets really good. I think, who doesn't want to hear this? I will make my dwelling among you, and my soul shall not abhor you. I will walk among you and be your God, and you shall be my people. This is what everyone wants, right? You want God walking in your presence. You want him among us, claiming us as his people, and breaking the bars of our yoke and allowing us to walk upright. And for the Israelites coming out of Egypt, this makes a lot of sense, right? They were oppressed for so long, and now he has given them the ability to walk upright. So the pleasantness ends. Are you ready? Deb, can you read verses 14 through 17?
But if you will not listen to me and will not do all these commandments, if you spurn my statutes, and if your soul abhors my rules, so that you will not do all my commandments, but break my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will visit you with panic, with wasting disease and fever that consume the eyes and make the heart ache. And you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. I will set my face against you, and you shall be struck down before your enemies. Those who hate you shall rule over you, and you shall flee when none pursues you.
I think we need to work on your menacing voice. Because it was so pleasant, but really, you are reading what? You are reading, right. I will visit you with panic, with wasting disease and fever that consumes the eyes and makes the heart ache. Yikes. All right, it's getting bad. Are we ready? Because we're not done yet. 18 through 20. Number 2. Chris.
All right, here we go.
All right, I'm
If
ready.
in spite of this you will not listen to me, then I will discipline you again, 7-fold for your sins, and I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heavens like iron and your earth like bronze, and your strength I don't even know what I'm saying, I'm so angry. Your strength shall be spent in vain, for your land shall not yield its increase. The trees of the land shall not yield their fruit. No fruit for you.
No fruit for you. All right. So if you don't listen, here are all the other things that I'm going to do to you. Whew. And you've got the 7 times thing thrown in, which kind of confused me through the whole thing. I'm like, okay. Is it going to be 7 times? Or is later 7 times 7? And then it's 7 times 7 times 7. And so I didn't even research that because I thought it all sounds terrible. I couldn't imagine if it was compounded by 7 multiple times. This is to me, I'm reading through Leviticus. I'm supposed to teach on this. I'm this is terrible. The beginning is oh, it's so nice and peaceful. And then you have, I will bring all sorts of terrifying things on you if you don't do what I am telling you to do. So let's walk through the beginning, all right? From the beginning of when we were reading, let's walk it through slide by slide. Okay, so if we live by his regulations, right, and observe them, he will provide us food, protection and strength, children, he'll uphold the covenant, and he will walk among you. Okay, so this is the nice part. Then we go to the first, if you don't. All right, if you don't, I will bring disease and fever. You won't have anything to eat, and you will be defeated by your enemies. Then we go to the second round. If you still don't, if you didn't learn the first time, and you still don't, times 7, I will break your pride. You will work for nothing. Wild animals will take your children. Did we read that part? I feel like I missed a part.
Children.
All right.
Livestock.
I meant before. Reduce your population until the roads are deserted and there are no people around. All right, this is getting depressing. We'll go the third time. If you still don't listen and you refuse my correction, I will strike you 7 times for your sins. I will execute vengeance of the covenant by the sword. You'll hide in your cities, and then I'll send sickness upon you so it finds you. I'm going to hand you over to the enemy, and you're not going to have any bread. Or you'll have bread, actually, and you'll not be satisfied. And then a 4th time. If you still won't listen and you go against me, I will chastise you 7 more times for your sin. You will eat the flesh of your own children. I didn't make this up. I will destroy high places and idols. This is interesting to me because at the end it says, I'll destroy your high places and idols. And to me, I feel like that should come at the beginning. I will lay waste to your cities and sanctuaries. I will disperse you among nations, and I will pursue you with the sword. All right, let's take a breath. It's a little exhausting, right?
Too much.
Too much, too much. We didn't read all of that because my notes are out of order. Okay, so we have these set of guidelines, right? We have the set of rules. They knew exactly how to live, and they were being taught because they didn't know how to live, right? It was different from Egypt. And so they're in, there's a learning curve. And so all of these things are being laid out to them very scarily. And I think about when I was a kid, and I knew the rules. Our parents, they give us sets of rules, right? And we generally knew the consequences or some, form of consequence that might be rained down upon us should we break one of the rules. And I think for me, a lot of times when I broke the rule, it wasn't really about the rule. It was about what I wanted. I just wanted to do something else. Or I was so busy doing something else that I forgot to do whatever I was supposed to do. And for the Israelites, it could have been a lot of things, right? And a lot of it could have just been practice because they're living a very different life from what they were living before. But it is a season of learning. And for whatever reason, God felt like he needed to lay out some very strict rules with some very intense consequences. And I think about laying out rules for kids, and I think we don't very often, and maybe you're different than me, I don't very often give a giant set of rules or even much of a small set of rules. We do a lot as we go with, if you do this or if you don't do this, here's your consequence. That would take forever. And then as a parent, if you're a parent, or even if you're a kid, you know that the parent has to actually follow up on the consequence. This is my worst thing. I often forget what the consequence is. And so sometimes he'll remind me, and I'm like, oh, right, thanks for reminding me. I gotta get a little smoother with that so that
That's how I am.
I need to to get a little smoother so he doesn't realize that I forget. But it's hard sometimes to follow up on those consequences. But this is a pretty serious set. And so I look at this and I'm like, there had to have been this like season where God laid out all of these rules and the Israelites are just struggling to follow them. And so he lays out these dire set of consequences so that they know, okay, if I do this, God is going to provide. You know, I might have been hungry when I was in Egypt because I barely had any food, but I know if I follow this set of things that are good for me, that I will have enough to eat and that God will do all of these things and gradually see some of those things actually happen. And we know that it took them a long time to learn, right? They struggled a lot. But in general, very specifically, actually, they knew what to do. And for us, I think we, in general, know how to live our lives. And part of it is from growing up. Part of it is probably learning from experience. As we have done wrong things, we have learned to do right things. But we have even a set of common decencies that we know we should live this way, right? And if we don't abide by those, there are some sort of consequences that follow. And maybe nobody laid out the consequences for us, but there are consequences nonetheless. They could just be natural, and then you figure them out. I was thinking about the idea of if we knew the consequences beforehand, like the Israelites did, would we do anything different? Because sometimes we don't actually understand the gravity of the consequences until we are in the middle of them. Now, chapter 26 is following chapter 25, which talks about the rhythm of kind of like the biblical calendar. So it talks about the Sabbath, it talks about Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, the year of Jubilee, and which is a time of rest in the land. Same with the Sabbath year, a time of rest. And it's teaching them this rhythm of life, which Leviticus is kind of teaching throughout. And so when we get to Leviticus 16, we're looking at sin, which can interrupt our rhythm, right? I was reading an article on Leviticus, and it said, it was talking about how today, when I think about rhythm, and I think about, I kind of think about rituals, because a lot of what dictates my rhythm is things that I do habitually, right? So Deb talked about, she gave the vitamin story. Did everyone take their vitamins this week because they're remembering Deb's story? So I was thinking about that through the week. So when we do things regularly or in a rhythm, they kind of become rituals. And most, I hope, are good. And so this article was talking about how society often says that rituals aren't good, that doing things the same time after time are not necessarily good, especially when it comes to any sort of spiritual experience. They want spontaneous, they called it spontaneous religious expression, everything to be like in the spirit rather than ritualistic. But if you think about our lives, there are lots of things that we do and we value more because we do them all the time. And because we do them all the time, we should show that they are valuable to us. Because if they weren't valuable, we wouldn't do them. And I was thinking about us in general and how, even our sleep schedule. If you think about, your body functions so much better if you regularly sleep the same amount of time and you have a consistent schedule throughout the week. we, in general, as people, find some comfort in knowing what to expect or having some things have a certain pattern to them. So that I think it takes a little bit of anxiety away, especially for people that are anxious. You walk in the gathering on a Saturday night and you kind of know what to expect. There is a certain rhythm to the service. Maybe not everything is the same, but there is a rhythm to it. In the same article, it said, there is something comforting about the familiar, the recognizable, the predictable. There is something deeply moving about performing a rite that is older than we are, one that goes back beyond the time of our parents and grandparents. There is power in the knowledge that we are doing what generations of people before us have done in similar situations, something that other people in other places are doing at the same time and in the same way. I never really thought about that before. I'm not necessarily one for I have grandparents that are both deceased, but beyond that, my great-grandparents were deceased before I was even born. So I don't look a lot at like generational things. But when I read this article and I was thinking about this, like, it's very interesting and it is comforting to think that all of these things that, this was thousands of years ago, that they are committing their lives to living this way. And now we're doing the same thing. But it's sometimes, for me, there's a disconnect. And I think that this is my choice now, and that was their choice then. But I forget about all of the people in between that committed to living this way. And that we have this giant genealogy, the annoying part when you are flipping through the Bible and you're like, and so was the son of so-and-so was the son, you read that and you're bored and then you flip through it. But there is such a rich history knowing that this didn't start last week. It didn't start with your parents or your grandparents. This has been going on for generations upon generations that people have been living or trying to live in this rhythm. A ritual is a way of life giving voice to ultimate values. This is actually the end of the article. Ritual is a way of giving voice to ultimate values. So when I was thinking about the idea of rhythm, I was thinking that when we put these things into our rhythm, no matter what it is, right, that we show people the things that matter to us, right? We show people things that we value. So I was asking myself, I said I would be fair and I would be transparent when I got to this part. And then I would really think through this part because I've been thinking a lot about the rhythms for the week, but I wanted to be specific. And so I want you to be specific as well. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to look at whatever we're doing right now tomorrow. So you have an option. You can write it down on a piece of paper. You can take out your phone and you can text yourself or email yourself. You're going to write 4 words down or 4 phrases. But I want you to look at it tomorrow. So prepare yourself. It's not going to be difficult. Don't worry.
A lot of things difficult for me.
You'll be fine. So I asked myself, when I look at my rhythm, I look at the rituals that I have in my life, right? What makes up the rhythm? What do people see? And not just what do people see, but do the things that they see actually reflect what I value? And if they don't, then I'm doing something wrong. And so The exercise is, and I will share mine, I will not make you share yours, but on a piece of paper or on your phone, I want you to write down 4 things that you greatly value. Things that should be reflected in your life because you value them. 4 things. Can't steal mine. You have to have your own. About a year ago, I was jotting some notes down about ideas for a retreat. And when I was doing it, I wrote down, what are my biggest priorities? Or what are your biggest priorities? That was the question that I wrote down. And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, how does someone know what their biggest priorities are? And I jotted down below it where you spend your time and your money. And so when I was thinking about rhythm, and when I was thinking about the things that are important to me, the things that I value, and the things that should dictate my rhythm, there are a lot of things. I chose 5, actually, because one was very apparent to me when I was sitting there earlier. So I added one. So when you're looking at your list, this is your job for tomorrow. When you look at your list, is this where you're spending your time and your money? Because if that is true, then these things should be dictating some of your rhythm or parts of it. And that's where you should be concentrating on putting a lot of your efforts. And so, for example, I will share mine. So people are really important to me. Friends, family. And so I looked at that and I said, is this where I'm spending my time? Is this where I'm spending my money? And I wrote down things that I'm doing well, and I wrote down things that maybe I need to work on. And so I wrote down, I've been taking more trips to see some of my family, but I am doing pretty terribly at talking to people on the phone. And my whole family lives far away from here. So it's important that I stay in touch. And so I need to work on this. I need to make this more of a part of my rhythm because I do value this. And if you look at my life, maybe you're not going to see that. For the friends piece, I said, I am making time to spend with friends, but I need to invite more people into my rhythm. I need to invite people to come eat with us and join the rhythm that is dinner at our house. For home, it's very important to me to have a home that is a place that I want to be and that I want to bring people into. It has always been a huge part of me. And so this has been, for sure, if you come to my house, you can see that I have invested time and money this year in those things. However, I also have a lot of unfinished projects. So I need to work on that. Generosity. For me, this is, I am missions minded. This is the piece that I'm lacking in. So that's why I wrote generosity down. It's important to me, and missions is important to me living overseas. But I've had a few people leave the field that I supported over the past year, and I haven't picked up somebody else in their place. And so I found a few like small things, but to me, it's important to consistently be generous and to have that be a part of my rhythm, at least every month. And so it's something that I wrote down that this is something that I need to be proactive in figuring out who are those people that I want to support and make them a part of this. I wrote down travel. I love to have that as part of my year. When I left Europe, obviously COVID happened, but I feel like I stopped traveling other than to see family. And I don't love that because I love to learn from other cultures. I love to have different experiences and to share them with other people. And so one thing that I recently started doing was committing to saving more, to take time off to travel, and to go experience some things with Keith, who has barely been anywhere. I would like him to see the world someday, and I would love to do some of that with him and share those experiences. And my last one, but not necessarily the last one, is faith. And for me, I said in the beginning that there is not a lot of silence in my rhythm. And that's all I wrote down was silence, because it's really hard to hear God speak when your whole world is noise. And I am the one who controls that. And that is an important part of everyone's rhythm. But for me, it is probably the greatest part that I am lacking. And so I am seeking and working towards creating space for silence in my faith so that I can hear God clearly. So that's the work that I did introspectively this week. So if you didn't email it to yourself or text it to yourself or don't lose the paper, that's what I always do. Make sure that you have that, and make sure, and I said take a look at it tomorrow, because if I say this week, you're going to forget about it. Or take a look at it tonight, because I think it's important for us to do the work to see what is dictating our rhythm and what are those things, because those are going to be the things that either we're spending our time and our money and they're actually interrupting our rhythm because maybe they're not good things, or they could be great things. And maybe your rhythm is right on point and you have a beautiful melody, and that's awesome. But there's usually something that's a little flat or a little sharp. And so my encouragement is really just to pinpoint those areas, because my weakness is I don't sit down and look at those things. And so this was actually a great exercise for me this week, because it's actually going to force me to sit down and say, okay, I need to actually, click that button, and I need to support that family that I said I was going to in my mind. And I just, I didn't do it because I didn't want to enter my credit card information because I'm lazy. It's not a good excuse, right? Or I have been working on building this little patio oasis on the back of my house, and the door just got put in. And I'm so excited to be able to walk out of my room and have this little patio. But I have to make it a priority to finish the patio. So I know that that is on my list, because that is where my silence is going to be. So I want you to look at yours, and I want you to look at your 4 things, maybe you wrote more, and figure out where are things interrupting your rhythm, and where are things, making that sweet sound. And let those things that you value contribute in a positive way. We don't necessarily need this list of all of these rules and all of these consequences like the Israelites did at this point in time. But we also know what happens when we live a life that has rituals in it, right? That has a rhythm that is good, that is sweet sounding, that is a pleasant sound, and we're better when we are in that rhythm. So, a couple things I want to kind of end with. I would love if you guys would share just some things. You don't have to share what you wrote down, but if you would like to share, what are some natural parts of your rhythm? So I'll give you 2 questions, and then we'll be done. What are some natural parts to your rhythm, and what are some things that disrupt your rhythm? Natural parts of your rhythm and what disrupts your rhythm.
Children.
Both?
Second question.
Disrupt?
Second question.
Yeah. I think both, but yes, definitely. They're unpredictable, aren't they?
I kind of like that animal eating them. I'm not certain that's punishment.
We're really glad that you have Heather. She will protect you guys.
I'll protect y'all.
Salt.
He's preserving y'all.
I was gonna say unexpected, just unexpected things that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Interrupt you or something that, make
Yeah.
you more tired or take time away or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unexpected things. It's really easy, unfortunately, to throw our rhythm off, isn't it?
I think people do, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
And I think that I need to be very conscious of like having more free time, like actually scheduled into my life, because I'll get, like if there's an opportunity to like go do something with people, like of course you want to do it, but then you're giving up things that are, probably no fun but need to be done. And so then you're like either not sleeping or you're doing like, I love people, but that I don't schedule that. So then it's like, oh, yeah, I want to go do this, but what am I not going to do to make that happen? On Thursday, it was feeding my children, or Wednesday. Roman's like, what are we eating? I was like, I don't know, I'm not coming home.
Cook something for yourself.
So, sorry.
There's sandwiches. The sandwiches.
Parents, what are we fine?
Cereal.
Just make yourself something.
Take your bed.
So, yeah. I like people.
What's a natural part of your rhythm? What disrupts your rhythm?
Work is a natural part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, my night schedule is a disruptive part of my rhythm. Just the day and night and
Mm-hmm.
constant back.
Yeah. That's it?
Either going out of town or like having family and friends come to our house. Throws
Mm-hmm.
off stuff.
It
I'm not
disrupts
saying it's a bad thing,
everything,
but, like,
right?
It takes I have to
Mm-hmm.
after either they leave. Like my parents were just in town last weekend, and like it was good and everything, but it like
Mhm.
I didn't do stuff the way I normally do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard.
You go on vacation, you gotta take a vacation from going on vacation. Like you gotta
Right.
jump up and then
Mhm.
catch back up from being on vacation.
Yeah.
Serving other people is a rhythm, but it also breaks your rhythm. Because you want to serve, but you can volunteer to serve, and it stops you from doing what you normally do.
Mm-hmm. And rhythm, like Deb was talking about the vitamins, and that was her like rhythm in the morning. But your rhythm doesn't have to be the same thing at the same time every day, like serving. It doesn't always happen at 8 a.m. on a Saturday.
It takes discipline to stay in rhythm.
It what?
It takes discipline to stay in rhythm.
Absolutely.
And we all love discipline.
Right. This is my struggle.
Now.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, some things, I mean, some things are, like for me, I guess, there are things I really enjoy doing habitually, like, getting up at a certain time and doing, having a quiet time or reading or having coffee, you're just having a cup of coffee and going and sitting for a minute as I wake up and think about the day and all that kind of stuff. And those things are, I mean, for me, those things are kind of important, having that very ritual thing that happens every day.
How many people have a morning, or we'll say before work ritual, that you kind of do the same thing every day before you go to work?
Get up and I get dressed and I
Or you can say, for those of you that go to school, you could say the same thing. Do you kind of always do the same thing? No? Well, do you get dressed before you get up? And then you eat breakfast in bed? Oh, okay.
You get dressed when you get up, before you get up. How?
I find, for me, the work part is allowed to be a little bit, not rhythmic, I guess. But the morning, when I don't do the same things every day, I get to work and I'm like a mess. I had physical therapy for like 5 weeks, 3 times a week in the morning, and it drove me crazy. I just graduated and I was so excited just because I love the people, but it threw my whole week off. I was like, please let me out of here. Because it was a rough, I don't know, however long I was there, it was rough because I just really needed my morning ritual back. So, all right, we can wrap up. But I do want you to look in those 4 things. I want you to look at your life. Look at the rhythms. Look at the things that are important to you. Make sure that they are in your rhythm. And if they're not, or maybe they're not necessarily the things that people would see, that if they don't show the things that you value, maybe just do a little recommittal of, I need these things to be more prevalent in my life. Because we know that they are helpful. And we know that everyone knows when you're not in rhythm, right? We can all tell. Everyone can tell when I'm not. So, it's true, Deb. It's true.
I'm not against
Right, yeah. And so take a look at those things and see and give yourself credit where things are good. I wrote some positive things down. And I just wrote other things that I need to work on to enhance those parts of my life. So I'm going to pray for you, and then we can be done. God, I thank you that you created rhythm. I thank you that we have all experienced it, and we know what it is. And I thank you that you can reveal things to us as we are a part of it. And I pray this week as we look at these things that we have said that we value, I pray that you would reveal to each person in this room, and anyone listening in general, that exactly steps that need to be made, Lord, and also things that are going well, that we may just make more steps to invite people into our rhythm to see what we value, to see who we value, and that we might just honor you in the rhythm that we live. Amen.